So just a couple of days ago, the official Snow White teaser trailer dropped at the D23 event that was held by the Walt Disney Company, and so far, it has been nothing more than an uphill battle for those out there like Bob Iger and the rest of the Disney board of directors. Essentially, this actual trailer has been getting ratioed across all forms of social media. Everywhere that you go, it is universally rejected, and it's not a good look for Disney, and it's most certainly not a good look for the Snow White brand in particular. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new, and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So there's been a lot of drama happening behind closed doors over at the Walt Disney Company regarding the Snow White movie, which, by the way, is in a downward spiral as we speak, after going through multiple test screenings that failed, by the way, and multiple reshoot phases that also cost them millions upon millions of dollars. A lot of it, by the way, had to do with Rachel Zegler. We'll talk more about that throughout this entire video. But what's interesting about Snow White 2025 is that this movie originally was going to be very close to 3 hours long in length, and it has been shaved down drastically for multiple reasons. Let's discuss. Now, what's interesting about all this has a lot to do with Rachel Zegler, and of course, everything else related to this movie that has been nothing more than ongoing drama for Bob Iger. Now, look, we already know that Bob Iger is dealing with a lot of backlash internally from some of the board of directors, some Disney executives, and that's exactly why you have a massive shakeup happening over at the Walt Disney Company as we speak. However, with that being said, on top of everything here, with multiple divisions at the Walt Disney Company still to this day going through various setbacks and challenges, one major development now has more to do with actress Rachel Zegler and the current financial status for Snow White 2025 in the midst of the drama that sparked with the release of the trailer. Now, one significant development going on right now involves how Disney reportedly lost a whopping $20 million on Snow White 25 over multiple scenes that were quote-unquote thrown in the garbage due to failed test screenings, from Rachel Zegler's failed acting capability to her being very difficult to work with on set as well. The $20 million plus, of course, worth of scenes that were lost due to Rachel Zegler's subpar acting had much to do with both the beginning and the end scenes of the film that were done 3 times over throughout various reshoots for, of course, the course of a year and a half. One scene in particular that was thrown in the trash and locked up in the vault forever now involved Zegler's version of Snow White training against a new character called the Master, teaching, of course, Snow White how to fight in front of her father's kingdom. Now, this was said to be a flashback sequence and served as the opening scene of the film, in which Snow White is around 3 years younger. However, the test screeners described the scene as terribly choreographed, with awful acting that was considered a deal breaker that would have most certainly caused massive walkouts from movie theater attendees. Now, the scene was reportedly an 11-minute opening scene that covers the basics of how Snow White is this fighter, so to speak, and the entire opening scene cost Disney a whopping, get this, $11 million after getting refilmed 3 times over with 3 failed test screenings. Her father, King White, even made a brief appearance, however, now reportedly no longer appears in the final cut of the film. Now, the other sequence that was refilmed twice, which cost Disney around the same amount of funds, involved Zegler's Snow White, of course, man-shaming a new character called Jonathan. He's basically the new prince in this movie, by the way, and teaching him a lesson about female empowerment and how she doesn't need his help to face the evil queen, portrayed by Gal Gadot. Now, followed by a massive one-on-one battle between Snow White and the evil queen. This scene also failed for multiple reasons, not just the bad acting, but the multiple setbacks that occurred during reshoots due to Rachel Zegler being very difficult to work with, as per her co-star on set, that had issues with filming multiple takes with Zegler for the upteenth time. Now, guys, before I move on, let me just say one thing about this. Between the overall multiple reshoots for both the opening and the ending scenes of this movie, and how Zegler was very incompetent on set, very difficult to work with, and that is just the least of the problems going for Snow White 2025. There's a lot more to talk about on top of that. that goes to show you that a lot of these overall sequences that went to a complete waste, that actually cost Disney millions of dollars in funds that are now forever lost, it goes to show you how much of an uphill battle this movie really is going to be to really make a profit at the box office. Now, we talked about this before, and we'll talk about it again a little bit later, but it cost them well over $350 million to get this thing done, you know, between principal photography and whatever has been done throughout all the post-production so far. This is basically a disaster for 2025, and it is also going to be a disaster for the live-action adaptation brand by Disney, alright? This is basically what they're trying to do. They want to create endless amounts of live-action remakes based on the animated classics. We know that Sword in the Stone right now is kind of in a limbo phase. We also know that, of course, others out there that are set to be remade, like Hercules, is also in a limbo phase as we speak. They're trying to get that back on track. However, this is just the beginning, because we know that Snow White is going to be a very big deal in March of 2025. It's not going to be a good look for Bob Iger, for the Disney executives, etc., etc. Now, the exact specifics are that between the two major scenes that were refilmed multiple times, it lost Disney around $25 million if you count the dozens of takes that were done and lost. The Disney executives and the board of directors were very angered and frustrated with Bob Iger for giving approval and providing the green light to waste so many funds on reshooting the opening and the ending of the film that were actually described as very important scenes. The budget is now well over $350 million, and that's not counting the marketing expenses. The funds used for these scenes are best described as wasted budgeting funds that will go nowhere due to both Zegler's acting and incompetence on set. So, look, this is exactly why you don't hire people like Rachel Zegler, why you don't hire actresses like that are very hard to work with. And we've seen many examples, like this across, history when it comes to the Walt Disney Company for the past 10 plus years, right? Look what happened with The Acolyte in the most recent weeks, right? When you have someone like Leslie Headland, the former personal assistant of Harvey Weinstein, that was specifically handpicked by Kathleen Kennedy, well, that's the type of, overall reaction that you get when it comes to The Acolyte, and why it failed so terribly. Because they grab these creators, these actors, these actresses that really don't care about the product that is being worked on. So again, we know that Snow White is going to be a massive failure, a colossal failure. If you look at the trailer alone, it's getting ratioed to no end. And when I say ratio, I know some of you out there are like, what does that even mean? We're talking about the likes versus the dislikes, alright? Whether it's on here, whether it's on other forms of social media, it is universally rejected. That's how bad Snow White is being received right now based on the trailer alone. I gave you guys my first thoughts. It feels like some nightmarish fever dream where everything feels generated. It just feels very fake. The visuals are so overdone, very CGI driven garbage. But overall, guys, drop a comment below, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.